Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm really excited to introduce Pauline Pollard to you. She's our next guest. She is offering you all a free mini course called Heal Your Child's Stress and Overwhelm. It's a 5-day course, so make sure you follow the link and connect to that. And her topic today is the confident, connected child, or that's the course that you have following the free course, right?
Yes, so that's right.
That's another course that you can join. So her topic today is mindfulness techniques that will have your child thriving and excelling in school, sport, and life. So yes. Pauline was originally a registered nurse and an accredited diabetes educator. She's also a certified child self-esteem coach, and she studied energy medicine, emotional freedom technique, Reiki, the chakras, as well as practicing yoga and meditation for over 20 years. And she's coming to us from Sydney, Australia. So welcome, Pauline, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Helen. It's lovely to be here. The invitation, it's fantastic. Fantastic. I'm really excited about this summit.
Yes, I'm really excited to learn from you today, because this is a topic I'm really passionate about, which is helping kids reduce their stress. So first of all, tell us how stress can be good for children.
Yes, so a little bit of stress can always be good for kids, in the fact that if they're about to sit an exam, or something new that they're about to do, you know, something, a new challenge that's come up. And generally that stress will be the sympathetic nervous system kicking in, that fight and flight, but it's a contained energy. It's a focused energy. And so what they're feeling is actually like a nervous energy. And this nervous energy can be balanced between nervous and being excited. And so as a parent or a teacher, you want to feed into that excitement energy, you know, sort of go, you've got nerves, they may feel butterflies in their stomach, buzzy feeling in their body, and it's like, that's great. You want to encourage children to say, just feel into that, because what that energy will do is it will actually propel them forward. It actually motivates them to want to try hard, to excel in what it is that they're about to do. And so that type of energy is really, really positive. So a little bit of stress is certainly not a bad thing. It's something that we just want to bring awareness to children that it's okay to feel that. And to even use some positive affirmations, like instead of saying that I'm really nervous about giving this talk, it's like, I'm really excited about giving this talk. I know that I can do this. I've studied for it. You know, so all of those things, I'm prepared. And so I'm ready to take that next step. And so that is where a little bit of stress can be a really positive thing to actually motivate and propel children forward into excelling in what they're doing.
Yeah, I loved that, because a lot of times we tend to think of stress as all negative. So I love the way that, you know, that you've worded that and told us about encouraging us to think about things in a different way, really, and not always to think that it's something bad. So tell us a little bit about what this kind of good stress looks like in a child's physiology or in their body.
Yeah, so what's going on is our body, our nervous system has this beautiful balance and harmony, and it works so well in our body. And so what's going on is that we have what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is actually the calm and rest. And then we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight and flight. Now, both of these are needed in our body, but there needs to be a really lovely fine balance. And so what's happening throughout our day, or throughout our children's day within their body, is that you want to have probably about 80% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time wants to be in that parasympathetic nervous system state where it's calm and rest. And then throughout the day, there'll be little challenges that come up, such as an exam, or, you know, that they need to learn something new on the sporting field if they're doing some sort of a sport. And so that's when the fight and flight can kick in. But what happens in a healthy body is that the fight and flight will kick in for that moment in time, and then it knows when to switch off. And then the calm nervous system kicks in again. So it's this beautiful balance that it's kept within the body. And so what I was referring to before in regards to that stress that's good for the body is when that sympathetic nervous system will kick in, the fight and flight will kick in prior to an exam. And then when the child is actually sitting the exam, that will diminish and the calming nervous system will kick in, so that they're able then to use that energy to focus and concentrate and get things done. So that's that beautiful fine balance in the body, and it needs to be, if children understand what's going on within their body, that's when they can actually, in a simple way, like what I've just said, it will actually help them to understand the techniques that I'm about to talk about in this summit a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So tell us a bit more about what it looks like, or what we would notice if a child is constantly stressed, and how that might affect them.
Yeah. So what happens in the body is that when a child is constantly stressed, you'll notice that their mind is really working overtime. And it can either be focusing on a lot of negative thoughts, a lot of negative patterns that are going on for the child. The child will generally start to think way into the future and be like predicting this might happen, and what if this happens, and then, you know, what if I do this and then this will happen, and, you know, that follow-on effect. Or they'll be looking at the past and say, but, you know, last time I did this, this happened, and so I really don't want to try it again because, you know, it didn't work out. So they have this mind chatter that's going on within their body. The body can perceive this as a threat because it creates emotions in our body, and emotions are energy. And those emotions will actually trigger that sympathetic nervous system, the fight and flight, to kick in. The problem happens when this happens ongoing, when it's an everyday thing. It's not just coming in when it's needed and turning off when it's not needed. The sympathetic nervous system starts to be turned on more often than it should. And so that's when stress can turn into anxiety, where it's an ongoing thing. And so what happens in the body is that when you're in that fight and flight more often than in that calm state, there's certain things that go on in the body when the fight and flight is turned on. And one of the really important things in regards to children learning, their learning capabilities, is that the blood actually leaves the front lobe of their brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. And it will actually travel to the extremities in order to for the fight and flight when an emergency happens. So the body feels like it's in an emergency state for a long, you know, all the time. It's just getting bombarded. And so what will happen is the blood leaves the brain, travels to the extremities, but when the blood leaves the brain and the energy leaves the brain, that prefrontal cortex, that's where the issues happen in regards to children who want to learn and to their study and focus and concentration, because the prefrontal cortex is predominantly what it's meant to be doing is that it helps with memory, it helps with judgment, it helps with perseverance, it helps with learning experience, learning from their experiences. It also helps with problem solving, focus, concentration, all of that sort of thing. And so what will happen is that if that is not being stimulated, then children, when they're sitting for an exam or just in the classroom, they can feel like their mind is fuzzy. They feel like they can't concentrate properly, they can't focus properly, they're not motivated to try new things. They might be distracted really easily by the children next to them or around them, or they may actually become the distraction themselves in the classroom. So it's a really big issue that can come up for kids when they're in that stressed state ongoing, because the energy is no longer contained. It's actually being scattered, and they feel very scattered in the way that they approach things.
Yeah, it's and I think we're seeing it more and more. Like we were talking just before the summit about working with preschool children, and even these really young kids are feeling anxiety and pressure, and I think a lot of the technology, as well as kind of creating distracted parenting or distracted teachers, or kids are kind of getting addicted to different kinds of technology. It's like a babysitter in some cases. So I can, I think it's going to be really interesting to hear what kind of solutions or tools or techniques we can use with kids to help them kind of manage this kind of not good stress that they might be facing.
And the thing is, Helen, because we are in the world of technology, our children are being born into this world. And so for us as parents, we weren't born into this world. So it's really taking a different way of parenting, a different approach for our children that are now becoming teenagers and having these devices. And, you know, what I've found for myself and for my clients is that to actually stop children using these devices can be to their detriment, because kids will always find a way to get on a device. But if we can embrace it rather than resisting it, and learn about what's going on in their world, to know what's going on in their child's world, and then go, okay, so what are the apps that you've got on your phone? There's certain things now that you can do where I know on my daughter's phone, certain apps will turn off at certain times so that she can't get on them. And she understands that it's not because she's being bad or anything like that. It's just like, because it's so all-consuming on a device, you don't realise how fast the time is ticking by. And so when you actually can reflect back and look at an app that tells you how long you've been on your phone for, it's pretty mind-boggling. And it can actually send kids into the fight and flight as well. So that's how it can become quite addictive, is that fight and flight, that adrenaline keeps kicking in. But it's not that healthy adrenaline of, you know, the adrenaline before a sports match. It's that adrenaline from the technology.
Yeah. So tell us some techniques that we can use to kind of manage this kind of stress in our kids.
Yeah. So some of the wonderful solutions, it really facilitates calm and clarity, these techniques, which are energy medicine techniques. So it's based on the energy, because our nervous system is an energy system. And like I was saying before, emotions are also energy. You can't see them, but you feel them. And so these energy techniques are really key in being able to get the body back into balance and alignment again. And so to use techniques that actually help to calm the nervous system down. Now, one of these techniques is a really simple technique that we do every day, and that is the breath. And just to give you a little bit of background on what's going on with the breath, is that we've all heard the saying that when someone's upset, it's like, take a deep breath, take a deep breath. Do we actually understand what's going on in the body when we take a deep breath? And so I'm going to explain to you what's going on. And when children understand this, they're more responsive to actually doing the deep breathing. So with our lungs, at the bottom of our lungs, we actually have receptors. And these receptors stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, the calm nervous system. And so that's the reason why when we say take a deep breath, you want to take a deep breath in so that the oxygen, so that the air actually travels to the bottom of your lungs to stimulate that calming nervous system to kick in. And when you do that, it actually shifts the energy. It will shift the energy, which you'll feel the shift in your body, which is shifting the sympathetic nervous system off and the parasympathetic nervous system on. Now, the same thing is happening at the top of our lungs as well. We also have receptors at the top of our lungs, and those receptors actually stimulate the sympathetic nervous system. So you might see little kids when they're really upset and they're sobbing and they're like, and they can't take a breath properly. And it's that real shallow breathing where they're, really upset, and that shallow breathing, it's stimulating that sympathetic nervous system. So you want to have some mechanism that you can, to be able to get them to take that deep breath, to initiate that change in energy, that change in calming the nervous system down and enhancing the parasympathetic, the calm and rest. Now, another technique that will help in the moment. Now, when you're teaching these techniques to children, it's really important that they're taught in a calm environment, not in the moment. So it's not a good idea when the kid is feeling really stressed and overwhelmed to go, you know what, you need to deep breathe because of this, this and this, and you need to do these techniques. It's like, nah, it's not going to work. So to introduce to our children when they're in a calm environment and create a discussion around it is really beautiful, and it creates that really lovely connection. So another technique that will help to calm children very quickly is the neurovascular hold, which is we have these neurovascular points on our forehead, and also our hands are actually electromagnetic. So they will draw the blood and the energy to where you place your hands on your body, which is really amazing. So on the top of our forehead, just above our eyebrows, there's, and you can just use the pads of your fingers, placing your fingers here and holding. Now for little children, parents or teachers can actually ask them and say before, they get really overwhelmed, would you like me to hold these points? Because they can hold these points and then it will create a shift in order for the child to then take a deep breath, because sometimes they're in that fight and flight. Now, the wonderful thing about holding these points is that you don't need to think positive thoughts. So the child can actually feel into whatever's made them angry, whatever's made them upset. And it's actually a good thing, because what you're doing is them feeling into that energy, feeling into what's making them angry. It's reprogramming the body to respond to stress in a new way. Okay, so it's basically just with your fingertips holding here, and then when you can, taking some deep breaths. And that will help to bring the blood back to that prefrontal cortex that I was talking about earlier, and get them to feel that calm switch of the nervous system instantly. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think sometimes we underestimate the power of touch and what it can do to calm us down, and the breath, which is available to everyone all the time, if we just learn how to use it well. So yeah, two very practical techniques there.
And also with the breath, Helen, there's a really lovely breathing technique which is called the long exhalation. And so basically all that is you breathe in for 4 counts, and then you exhale for 8 counts. And you exhale through your mouth. And what's that doing? That is really great for kids that have that mind chatter that I was talking about, where it's consistently thinking about things, what's going to happen and all of that sort of thing. Because by doing this breath, number one, it's getting them to focus on something else. It's getting them to focus on their breath and focus on the counting. And what that does is it creates a pause in that mind chatter. And that's all they need, is to have that pause in order for the energy to shift. So you've got the benefit of that pausing, focusing on something else, and the benefit of the breathing to switch their nervous system over. So that don't underestimate that technique. And there's other breathing techniques which are a little bit more advanced that also help with so many other energy systems in our body too. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing those. So tell us, what do you think are the most important things to help a child really thrive and excel at school? What are those, maybe 3 or 4 ideas that could help our viewers?
There's 3 key things that need to be happening in a child's body in order to facilitate that learning experience. Now, when a child is really stressed, what can happen in the body is these 3 key processes become imbalanced. Now, I'll just lead you through those key processes if you like. The first one is that in a healthy body, our energy is actually crossing over. And what that means is if you take it to the brain for the moment, we look at the brain and we have 2 hemispheres of the brain. We have the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And for a child to be able to be learning at their optimal level, both hemispheres of the brain need to be communicating with each other. And so what happens in our body is that the energy actually crosses over. So the left hemisphere of our brain coordinates the right side of our body, and the right hemisphere of our brain coordinates and sends information to the left side of our body. So that's where we're getting this crossing over of energy in our body. And what this also does is it helps with coordination. So kids in the sporting arena where they need to have that balance and coordination, this is really, really powerful to have this energy crossing over. So the same deal is with children in the academic world. So when they're in the classroom, ready to start listening to the teacher and for them to be able to learn and focus and concentrate and take all that information in, the energy needs to be crossing over from their brain, okay? So what happens is when a child is stressed and that sympathetic nervous system has kicked in, it can actually knock that system out of whack, and their energy starts to flow in what's called a homolateral flow. So it's straight up and down the body. This is something that actually is really interesting in regards to children who have dyslexia. I've just finished working actually with a client, an 8-year-old girl who has ADHD and dyslexia. And it was really interesting because when I tested her energy, she tested positive for the homolateral energy and tested negative for the crossing over energy. And I knew before I even did the test that that's what the result would be. And her mum was just like, wow, this is just an energy testing technique. So for her, what's happened is because it's been going on for a long period of time, her body has assumed that this homolateral state is the normal state of being, not the crossing over. So you've got to retrain the body when it's been going on for that long time, retrain the body to adopt this new, what we call a new way to get the energy crossing over. And so there's different ways to do that. But one simple technique that you can use to help to cross the energy over is what we call the shoulder pull. And so what it is you place either your left or your right hand, the left hand on the right shoulder, and you take a deep breath in. So you inhale, you squeeze the shoulder, and as you exhale, you're actually dragging your hand across your chest, keeping in contact with your body, and off the opposite hip. And then you do the same on the other shoulder. So you take a deep breath in, squeeze, and then as you exhale, you're dragging your hand across your chest, keeping in contact with your body, and off the opposite hip. And you want to do that at least 4 or 5 times on each side, and that will help to facilitate the energy crossing over. The second key process in our body, so the first one was the crossing over of energy. The second key process is when we're in a fight and flight state for a period of time, our energy actually, instead of flowing forward in a forward motion, our energy actually stops and flips backwards. And it's actually it's actually a way of our body protecting ourselves. So if you can imagine in our house, we have, the electrical board out the side of the house, and there's that switch that when there's too much energy flowing through, it switches off to protect us, to stop the energy because it's just too much going through. That's like our body works. So when the energy is like you're really in a stressed state for a period of time, our body just goes whoop and flips backwards, letting us know that we need to actually rest. So it's a way of protecting our body. But what we want to do is, like, when we're ready to learn in the classroom and, sit down, we don't want to rest. We want to actually get our energy flowing in a forward motion. And so there's another technique which is really simple that will help with getting that energy back in the forward motion. And it's also, I was just thinking, also in the sports arena. So if your energy is flowing backwards, when you're going to do a sport, so if you go to cycle or run or swim or go for a walk in that forward motion, what's happening is your body's energy is flowing backwards and you're trying to go forwards. So it's like this resistance. And I don't know if you've ever experienced where you've gone for a run thinking that you're going to, pep yourself up and feel great afterwards, but you've actually gone for a run and then you feel a bit not really energized at the end of it. You feel exhausted at the end of it. What's happening is you're resisting, you're going against the flow of the energy in your body. So this is a really great technique, once again, for the sporting arena as well, getting the energy to flow in a forward motion. So in order to do that, what we're going to do is just tap on a meridian in our body, the end point of the kidney meridian, which is actually located, if you find your collarbone and you just travel down, and you'll find the two notches where the collarbone just ends here. Find the two notches and then just feel down and you'll feel a space. And it's that space that you want to tap and deep breathe. So you'll tap here and then breathe in deeply, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. And when you do this, and you need to tap quite firmly. If it's not a firm tap, it can actually keep the body in the backward flow. So you want to tap firmly. And do you know what? This is one of my favorite tapping points. I do this when I'm driving, not when I'm actually driving, but when I come to a red light. So when you're driving? No. When I come to a red light, I'll sit there and just automatically just do this. Start tapping and deep breathing. And if kids at school want to not make it so obvious that they're tapping here, you can actually just massage. Just massage these points and deep breathe. The breath is really important when it comes to energy medicine, okay? And so that's number 2. And then number 3, so we've gone through crossing the energy, we've gone through getting our energy in a forward motion, and the third element that gets out of balance when your child is really stressed is the energy becomes very scattered. So what that means is, and what that looks like, is that their mind chatter really escalates. They can't think clearly. They feel overwhelmed by little things, just trigger them all the time. It's just, and they're feeling that really dense, heavy energy. What's happening is that they need to ground their energy. Okay, so the energy is really scattered. They need to pull their energy back into their own body and ground their energy. Now, the simplest way to ground energy is to get outside into Mother Nature. It really is. To walk barefoot on the grass, to walk, if you're near a beach, to go down to the beach, walk on the sand. And if you can get into that wet sand, it's fantastic. Mother Nature supports us so much. Her energy is so powerful. And to just walk in Mother Nature and take these deep breaths and just bring your attention to your feet, because we actually have energy centers, like we have energy centers throughout our body, which are the chakras. I won't go into detail about that. But we also have energy centers in the palms of our hands and in the soles of our feet. So by connecting our feet with Mother Nature, we're actually connecting our energy with her beautiful, strong, powerful energy that we can literally draw up through the soles of our feet and into our body. Now so that's a really simple way of doing it. And another technique, which is another tapping point on the body, is actually tapping on our cheekbones. And this tapping point is the stomach meridian. Now, this stomach meridian actually travels the length of our body, so it travels around our face and down our body, all the way down our legs and off our second toe, and grounds us into Mother Earth. So this tapping technique will help to ground your energy really, really quickly. So doing this and getting outside is a wonderful combination for the two. And once again, you're deep breathing, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth while you tap here. And it only needs to be for a couple of deep breaths, and it will help to ground that energy. So those three key techniques or three key processes are really simple things that children can do that will facilitate that learning, ready to focus and listen to the teacher and take in that new information.
Yeah, those are great, really things that you can do anywhere, aren't they? And I know what you said about Mother Nature. We're lucky because we both live near beaches, you in Sydney and me in Portugal. But that is, my daughter loves it. I love it. Just to go to the beach and put your feet in the sand, as you say, it's just this immediate kind of, if I feel stressed out, I just go straight to the beach. That's my go-to place. So I think it's a great thing for kids, or just to go out in the playground. And what we're seeing more and more, I don't know if it's like that in Australia, but I know in the States and Canada, tends to be more and more keeping kids indoors, and recess being cancelled and things like that. Whereas in countries like Finland, you go out, doesn't matter what the weather's like, right? You go out in nature, and it obviously has a big impact on the children. So
like you mentioned that school in Finland is one of the top achieving schools in the world, and the students are outside more than they're inside. And it's interesting also what you said, Helen, because I was thinking, when the teachers give the children detention, where are they giving you've got to stay in the classroom and have your lunch in the classroom. This is where you're having detention. What about if detention was actually outside in the, next to a tree, and they were taught how to breathe, do that breathing technique that I just showed, the 4-8 breathing technique. I wonder what would happen.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about how how education systems work, and are we really doing the right thing for children by keeping them inside, as you said, detention, sitting like there's so much that could be done to teach kids how to manage their stress, how to calm themselves, or so many useful things that they could be learning that might avoid those problems in the future. Like I just read a study about instead of detention, they were teaching kids meditation, and that just dramatically dropped the amount of referrals to the principal and things. I think it was in a middle school in the States, but I think we'll see more and more as people start to read the research around the benefits of mindfulness and meditation in young children. So and it's important to understand too, is if children are acting out in the classroom, if they're acting out, you need to actually go deeper than what the behaviour is showing, because the behaviour is the end result, and what's going on deeper generally is that children don't feel good enough, or they don't feel that they're in control of what's going on for them. And so by putting them in detention and putting them in this time out, it's actually reinforcing to that child that they are not enough, that they are not good enough. And that's where it's really, really sad. It's a really sad thing to know that that's what that child is feeling, and that we're actually making it worse by reinforcing what they're feeling. Yeah. Yeah. So just before we finish, are there any other ideas or thoughts that you want to share on how to help children to kind of thrive at school and in the classroom?
Yeah, well, just very quickly, there's quickly four key elements that I see that are really important for children to be thriving at school, at sport, and in life in general, because these energy tools, these energy techniques are something that they can take into their life. I wish that I knew these techniques, excuse me, when I was a child. I've introduced them to my children at 5 years old and 7 years old, respectively, and now they're 12 and 14. And I can see a huge difference in the way that they perceive events and, just how they handle themselves in different situations and different challenges. So the four key elements I see is firstly that the first thing is that your child's energy is uplifted before they even walk out the door to go to school. That if you can use, like I use every morning and with my kids, is a combination of 10 techniques, and some of them what you've seen today, but a combination of 10 techniques that you do. It takes about 5 minutes in the morning to do. And what it does, it's getting that energy crossing over. It's getting your energy going forward. You're getting grounded. You're feeling these positive emotions. You're feeling happy, joyful, grateful, and you're ready to walk out the door. So that in itself is such a key thing. The second thing is that throughout a child's day, they're going to come across challenges. You know, whether it be someone said something to them in the playground, they've given a test that was out of the blue, and they're like, oh my goodness, to be able to have these techniques, like 3 techniques that they can use in the moment to help to calm their nervous system and to be ready to actually take on the challenge and to calm their mind in order to think clearly, to then make a positive decision, is really key. And that's just not only at school, and it's not just in the sporting arena, it's in the big wide world, to be able to make decisions that are good for them. The third key element is to be able to cleanse their energy themselves. And what I mean by that is that when they're in a classroom of 30 other students, it's a pretty confined space and there's a lot of energy going on, and we actually sense other people's energy. And a lot of children these days are very sensitive to other energy, and so inadvertently they're actually taking on the energy of other people around them. So there may be a time where a child will come home from school and they feel frustrated, annoyed, overwhelmed, and there's nothing specific that's actually happened at school that they can put their finger on as to why they're feeling these feelings, but they're just like, I just don't feel good. And so to have techniques that actually cleanse that energy from their nervous system is amazing. So it's a technique that it's really hard to explain right now, but you actually go through this along their spine, and just with the deep breathing and some pressure points, it helps to release that energy out of their body. It's amazing, and it actually calms them down. I do this generally before my kids go to bed, and lying down on their bed and just cleanse their energy, and they just go, oh, this feels fantastic. You literally see their eyes roll back into their head. They feel so good. And then the final one is, the number 4, is that once you've actually dealt with the challenges and cleared the energy, children are then able to tap into their own intuition. And what that means is, instead of a child feeling that they have to compare themselves to other kids, to look outside themselves and be a people pleaser, to feel that they have to, whatever's going on outside, oh, that's what my friends are doing, so that's what I'm going to do as well. It actually brings their energy back and the focus on them, where they feel worthy enough, they feel confident enough that they know what their answers are within them, and they can make those choices from within, and then, move out into the world and just feel really grateful, as well as feel into what is passionate for them, what is their passion, what is the value that they have to offer the world.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so the free course that I'm offering, Helen, actually has in more detail techniques that children can use, and parents. I always, with my clients, the parents always use these techniques as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, some great points there. I love that you talked about that kind of energy contagion, because I think that's something that we sometimes overlook. But I mean, it's so true, right? You have everybody gets worked up in the class, and then suddenly, you know, or the teacher comes in and they are in a bad mood. Well,
Yes.
suddenly the kids are all, you know, not happy as well. So yeah, I think that's a great point, and I love the 4 different aspects. So I encourage everyone to look into the course and learn more about how you can help yourself and your child, or if you're a teacher, to help yourself and the kids in your class to manage your energy in a way that's beneficial for everyone. And I just want to thank you so much, Pauline, for sharing those very practical exercises with us, and also, you know, all the theory and information behind that, and how we can help our kids to kind of thrive, not to just be, you know, encompassed by all this kind of negative stress, but to see the good stress and keep that balance, as you said at the beginning. So thank you so much again for joining us.
It's been my absolute pleasure, Helen. Thank you for having me here. It's been fantastic.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.